Welcome everyone to our first operations technology cybersecurity event. It's really important that all of our events and activities are member driven. So when Diarmuid came to us with the idea of starting an OT security group as part of Cyber Ireland, we said, look, let's test the waters and see what's the level of interest in this topic. And what we've seen over the last couple of weeks is a huge number of organizations getting in touch with us and wanting to get involved in this group. And we're delighted to have over 100 registrations for today's webinar. So we know this is definitely a topic of particular interest to our members. Dr. Diarmuid Briain, who has organised today's event, is the lead for this potential new OT security special interest group. He is a lecturer in the Institute of Technology, Carlow, and the Director of Industrial Networks and Cybersecurity postgraduate programme at the Faculty of Engineering. Diarmuid is a chartered engineer with over 30 years of industry experience in the telecommunications, computer networking and information security sectors. He is a Fellow of Engineers Ireland, a senior member of the IEEE and a certified information systems security professional. So he's certainly well placed to lead out the development of this group. Similar to how we set up our threat intel group, today's session is an introductory webinar to explore the operational technology cybersecurity challenges that companies are facing today, and to see how can we address these challenges through a collaborative approach by bringing together the OT cybersecurity consumers, the integrators and the OT cybersecurity vendors together across the value chain, and as well those from academia, research and government. So it's really important that all of our working groups are inclusive, that they're relevant to our members and that they're industry led. And we will be giving you an opportunity to get involved in the initiation of this new working group as well. We'll be running a survey at the end of the webinar to gather your suggestions and input on why you're interested in participating in this group, what are some of the areas of interest, the challenges for companies, and also the opportunities for knowledge sharing, and what should be the focus of the group's activities and our objectives. And there will also be then a call for speakers and volunteers to run the OT security group as well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Diarmuid now to kick off today's event and introduce our speakers.
Thanks very much, Owen. My own understanding of cybersecurity risk was formalised when I completed an extreme hacking course with Ernst & Young back in 2002. However, it's become clear that many in society are only now becoming aware of cybersecurity as a threat, due to the very public nature of the HSE and Colonial Pipeline attacks in recent weeks. And it's not surprising either that due to the audacity of these attacks, that the finger of blame has been pointed beyond the criminals to the authoritarian states that are actually supporting them. And this is evidenced by the increased rhetoric from NATO at the weekend. So while these events in general are showing a large picture that something must be done is the kind of mantra now within the political class, we have been dealing with this in industry for nearly 20 years. However, the complexity, volume, regularity, and the scale of these attacks are on the increase, facilitated by new technologies. And these attacks are either leveraging money or damaging infrastructure, but ultimately they're leading to damage to the economic output. It's fair to say that the reasons for attacks on OT are the same as the attacks on IT. However, the potential for physical damage and human death, even and casualties, is much higher in the OT, I would say. Also, the priorities of an OT organization are more about output and availability of the manufacturing or the utility than actual confidentiality, as one would expect in IT. We're also at a time of automation. We've seen over the last decade and a half the move of computing over to the cloud. And we're now seeing, as we speak, the transfer of networks to software-defined networks and 5G, and we can see 6G and artificial intelligence on the horizon. So these are new vectors and new tools that are of use to the cyber criminals and to the cyber warfare organizations as well. So these events have led to the identification of this need for a special interest group within Cyber Ireland. And today, rather than considering solutions, we're actually going to go back to the root of the problem. And I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Wayne Bursey he's the Industrial Cybersecurity Lead in Siemens, Ireland and Scotland, and Eamon O'Mara, the Site IT Lead for MSD here in Carlow. So 2010 may seem a long time in the past. However, an attack on an Iranian centrifuge and a nuclear reactor pushed Siemens front and center with this problem, as it was their S7 PLC that was the target of the attack. And this caused Siemens to not just look at cyber risk in terms of their products, but to look at cyber risk right across their organization. It was a real coming of age, I suppose, for cyber risk within Siemens. And Wayne will bring us through that journey in a moment. Pharmaceutical manufacturing has been key to the Irish economy for at least 2 decades now. And Eamon is going to give us the insight of a defender trying to defend a large manufacturing site against potential negative impacts of cyber attacks on their output and on their profits. It's not just a matter of deploying cybersecurity tools, the latest tools or the latest processes, because they must gel in with the operations processes as well. And this is key, and it's a kind of a balancing act that the defender must do to keep the operations running while deploying cyber processes and tools that will protect the manufacturing site as best as possible, so there's no vulnerabilities being left for the attackers to attack. So as Owen had said, at the end of this, there will be a short survey. I really ask you to participate in this because this is a new venture, and we would really like to see the venture grow and would like to see where this venture will go from here. So it's important that you participate in the survey to help us drive this the way you want this particular group to actually evolve. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Wayne. So Wayne.
Thank you, Diarmuid. Can you see my screen? Just a quick screen check.
Yeah, I can see it fine anyway, Wayne.
Okay, perfect. So thank you everyone again for your attendance. And today I'm going to take you through the journey, as Diarmuid explained, the Siemens journey post Stuxnet and what it meant for our organization. So as an overview, Diarmuid mentioned that we've seen this sort of evolution of these risks to the OT environment that coincided with the rise of connectivity, this trend towards digitalization, the thirst for data off the manufacturing layer, and this directly coincides with kind of the scale of attacks that we are seeing. So for us as Siemens, we go back to 2010 with the arrival of Stuxnet and what that meant for us as a company, and what we did. So just some highlights on Stuxnet from our side. So it was the first Trojan specifically written for Siemens OT devices. So for one of our PLCs, S7300, there was really a lot of resources and skill and time dedicated to writing this malware. The impact was low, let's say, for our end customers. It was 24 machines globally that were affected by it. Siemens themselves never had interaction with the end customer who this event was targeted for. But it was kind of a really eye-opening moment for us as a business to say, right, there's some specific malware written against the Siemens product, and so well done that even the malware would hide itself from our visualization system, from the SCADA system. So if this was installed, you wouldn't be able to see it running, that it would mask itself within the WinCC, the SCADA system. So really, what was the biggest takeaway from this event for us was, how do we handle vulnerabilities? Now, there's two parts to this. The first part really would be the vulnerabilities. How do we manage our product vulnerabilities that go to our customers? So at that stage, it took us about 2 weeks to put a team together and start acting on this. If we fast forward to the present day, we have a dedicated product cert. It's a 24/7 operation. We have an hour incident response. So we now expect these vulnerabilities. We plan for them. So we work directly with research laboratories, with governments, with test facilities. We plan, we reward for vulnerability disclosures. We have a 100% transparency against these with these. And obviously in our design process for product, we design we have security as a fundamental within the design. So we have security testing along the way. Back before 2010, this was not really a prerequisite when you're designing products. And the same now would go in, this kind of goes back into our own facilities, the manufacturing facilities, where each of them now have these facilities to test the security of the products coming out of those facilities. So this has kind of a wide range in consequences for our operations. The second part was standard. So I think take away really pick a stand. So Siemens, we use the IEC 62443 standard. That is the standard written for the OT domain. It comes out of the ISA. It's very much a collaborative standard where you have vendors, end customers, governments kind of all adding to this the standard, and it's a real holistic approach. It has the kind of, let's say, the defense in depth. We've heard that before, but it takes account of protection across all levels of your manufacturing facility. So from working from the inside out, looking at from your core systems, the hardening of systems, patching, how to detect attacks, looking at your network security, segmentation, segregation from your RT networks, and then out to the physical and the plant security. So looking at the people and processes within your organization, and takes that into account. So for us, really applying how did that work? So for us, it was really a collaborative approach. So we have to kind of look at this from a higher level. So bring in all the necessary people within our manufacturing facilities, and look at what are the assets we try and protect. So what do we need to protect? What are the threats that we have? What vulnerabilities exist? And what would the impacts be to our business if that went down? Now, this is split across various manufacturing facilities of all different types. So really, this is at a high level in the beginning stages, and it starts to plan out your security concepts and starts to put together your management strategy for what you need to do. So looking at this workflow defined in 62443, it's I guess that high level approach, looking at this initially, so that you start to define these out, and then choosing a security target level that you would like to achieve. Now, this approach is the same for us. We call this high level approach our threat and risk analysis. We do this whether it's in our facility, the way we develop product, and the way we do projects with customers. So we have sort of three arms to this as Siemens, and the application of this is exactly the same. And then once we develop this targeted security level we'd like to achieve, it's about what do we need to implement to do this. So this could be people and processes, it could be the security concepts and technologies that go into it, and then consistently we do a risk assessment against that. So it's this continual improvement process in reevaluating the risks, see where you are currently and where would you like to be. And you've always got one eye on the horizon and on current threats, as we've seen in some of these the breaches recently, is that you're now having to adapt and consistently improve in line with attackers, but also as newer technology comes on board. So the standard defines the protection level in two parts. So it doesn't just, you can't just throw technology at it. You've got to bring your people, processes, what they call maturity level, along with that. You can't just expect the technology to take care of this. You still need to have that training, what policies you have, and then again the procedural piece, how you use these technologies to leverage that security within your organization. So the standard has 4 protection levels as such, and you can see they have like a wide range in 5 pillars. So it's not only taking into account like that physical access protection, but also the organizational piece, down to your security lifecycle management. So how your backups done, how do you train for security incidents, bring backup system, bring backup machines, all those sorts of things. I really have to encompass all those elements. And then the third lesson for us is is this collaboration piece, and I guess is why we started in this OT security group. Is this security network is vital. You can't achieve this alone, and even Siemens themselves, we work, let's say from an internal point of view, we don't just rely on our German headquarters to do all the security for us. Each individual region with their own factories and their facilities are responsible for the security. We have the product certs, but we also liaise with the local certs that in each of those regions. We work with governments, with organizations, regulatory bodies, the standards, we're helping develop those in line with what needs to be done. So it's really about this collaboration piece to undertake this security, this holistic security view, and how to build on this network when you have events and when you need support. And really is working with these bodies now, but with certifying. So not only certifying our own facilities, so doing those assessments, see where we are against the standard, applying those security mitigations, technologies, and concepts, and adapting that all continuously. But that then applies to the products that come out of those facilities and then go to other customers. So we then certify those products from their whole life cycle development, from when the R&D is that separated from manufacturing, creating that security throughout its life cycle, and again validating them with these standards as well. And coming back to the collaboration piece, so this applies whether it's us Siemens as a company, as a manufacturer. So working with our vendors who send us machines, are they designed securely? What security features do they have? Verifying that security when we undertake a project ourselves. We would apply security to that as the asset owner, and it's that continuous development. And that is it from our side. I'm going to hand over to Eamon now to start his presentation.
Hey guys, thanks for that, Wayne. And let me just share my screen here now, and then we can kick off. Share. Presentation mode. There you go. Perfect. Okay. Okay. So yeah, hope you can see my screen, guys. So thanks for the opportunity to speak to this inaugural session, and a lot of what Wayne has said there is going to actually resonate with myself, and you'll see a lot of commonalities in the conversation we're going to have around OT security, particularly in the pharmaceutical manufacturing sector, because it's an area that we have looked deeply at. It certainly does cause some concern because of the variety of vendors we have, not just on my own side here in Carlow, but across the whole network of our company, because we have lots of different branches and different organizations within our own umbrella. So interesting concept from what Wayne has spoken about.
Eamon, just to let you know, you're in the presenter mode where we can see your next slide. I don't know, are you able to switch that?
Okay,
around?
I'll change the screen. Apologies. Yeah, 1 second now.
All right.
Share that. Thanks for that. A second. I'll just stop sharing for a minute there, guys, okay? Stop sharing. Apologies for this now. Okay, maybe this might help. Okay, is that better?
Try sharing now, Eamon.
Oh, that's a good idea, right? Hang on a second. Yeah, we don't use Zoom, so I'm not familiar with it, so apologies, guys. Can you see my screen now?
We can, but we can't see the slide deck.
Can you see it now? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay, apologies. Okay, so thanks for that, and you've got a sneak preview of my second slide, which is a quote from probably one of the most famous cybersecurity gurus, and if you read what he says, it's very simple. If you think technology will solve your problem, then you don't understand the problem and you don't understand technology. I think that's a really good, very simple line to explain to people, you know, this is where it is, and it's a new world out there that we're looking at. Looking at the problem itself, certainly within our industry, And again, Wayne touched on it, and so did Diarmuid earlier on, looking at the whole advent of Factory 4.0. There is a convergence of IT, OT, and IoT, and people need to relook, and you know, it's been asked by security practitioners, etc., to look at back to the drawing board and see where we are, because what originally was best in practice for IT does not fit in, with OT and certainly IoT, and so we need to look at, you know, without compromising the integrity of operations, we need to figure out what's the best way to protect ourselves, because at the end of the day, our job is to make product, but to do that, we need our technology to support us. So in our industry, and it looks like Wayne and Siemens have done the very same thing. Actually, we formed actually an organization, a team basically, not just IT people, but right across the whole business network from the point of view of business users, IT, OT teams, and also risk governance, so that we work together to maintain a robust and comprehensive review of manufacturing and lab security. So just to look at emerging manufacturing requirements, but also emerging threats and risks that we see across the organization. And as I mentioned earlier on, I mean, one size does not fit all. In the IT sector, and I'm from the IT background originally, we look at what's our job. We protect the data, we protect the intellectual property for corporate finances, etc., etc. But realistically, the hierarchy, we have a CIA hierarchy where we go confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and in that order. If you switch onto the OT side of it, it's slightly different in that, you know, the OT runs operations for us. So it looks at yields, it looks at outputs, it looks at risks around operations, not on networks. And so OT actually reverses the CIA model, where it says, well, it must be available first because our job is to get product at the door. And so the piece of equipment or whatever we're dealing with, that job is to make product, and everything else comes second. And so straight away you see a problem there across both areas. And so, you know, it's important from an infrastructure perspective to look at how we manage OT, because, you know, IT, you talk about patching, you talk about extending warranty updates, etc. for IT equipment. OT is not that easy because you have embedded equipment, etc., whereby you may have a long extended life cycle before you can patch or you can reboot because of operation reasons. And so they're the challenges that we see, and I'm sure everybody else on the call who has the same challenges from an OT perspective are in the same boat as this, because it is a case of finding the right spot to ensure you're secure, but yet ensure that you can actually keep operations running. And so the team itself that we formed, it looks basically at the whole IT and OT areas, and we're very clear that IT solutions will not work for OT. So we need to look in these areas closely, see what's the best way forward. And what we've done is we've kind of orchestrated a plan around how we look at this across the whole organization. We need to look at applications. So obviously things are moving from core to cloud, IoT devices. You know, we're getting robos and robo operations from a robo perspective across the networks. And so we need to look at effective solutions right across the whole network, as not alone does IT change, but we're not static, but also OT changes as well, as the business and customer asks for more information, more data-driven information from us. So, you know, on one hand, we're asked to link up everything, but on one hand, we're also asked to protect things as well. And so there is a paradigm there that we need to kind of march through. And so that's why our team is focused on the specific areas. And it brings us to our 9 principles. And this is the brainstorming and conversation piece we had around how is best to handle this. Bearing in mind my comments earlier on that we're not just one manufacturing area, we're a number of manufacturing areas of different ages and using different technologies across a huge network. But even so, we're all integrated. And so the 9 principles that we come up with are listed here. Again, I won't go through them all, they're quite straightforward themselves, but simply, you know, look at a common architectural base, be aware of manufacturing, what's coming, what needs to come, what's there in the past, and just to see, can we get a strategy forward whereby we can actually look at integration across similar plants and similar requirements. A key part of it that number 3 there was actually integration with IT risk management systems. initiatives like USB blockings, whitelisting of areas, down to the IT firewall, internal and external firewalls, that kind of thing. So again, risk management from an IT perspective is there, but a lot of that is cognizant of the OT elements as well. Number 4 is exactly what we're doing right now, guys. Peer conversations, because at the end of the day, we're all in the same boat here. We're all trying to protect ourselves against the same common threat in a bigger picture. And so conversations like these, an organization like Cyber Ireland, and also in particular the OT element of it now, to me, it's very important for us as an organization. Again, we're not going to share any details as regards the actual security itself, but in the whole, we're actually all marching in the same direction. And so it's good to have that common conversation across ourselves. From a vendor perspective, I mean, Siemens are one of our vendors, and we have other vendors, and a lot of other companies have other vendors as well. So conversations with vendors is also important, because the vendors are just as key to move forward with this as we are. And so let's look at that element of it and get the conversation going with the vendors and share success stories, not among our own industry, but also with other industries as well, and with the vendors as well, because at the end of the day, as I mentioned, it's a one common threat that we're working on. So let's work on it together. Number 6 talks about cross-divisional within our organization. We have lots of different divisions. So we sometimes look at manufacturing in our area as one area, but lots of different divisions. So looking at portfolio planning going forward and how we manage it, that's key to us as well. Number 7 again talks about the current issues. Where do we see the pain points at the moment? What sites are having pain points, particularly with OT, and how can we help alleviate those? So again, simple things like patching, preventative maintenance, licensing agreements with vendors. They're all pain points when you look at things like whitelisting and that kind of thing, because it does cause issues. And so if someone has learned a lesson already, then let's learn a lesson from them and move forward. And then obviously periodic reviews as regards internal guidelines. What's the industry standards? What's the internal guidelines that we have on this? And keep it up to date. Let's march forward with that. And then the last point to me is the most important point of all of this is we need to act as a unified voice across the industry, across our organization, and also really important to share success stories, because a lot of good work has been done, will continue to be done, but sometimes that work is hidden, and we need to share that, because to move forward with it, you need to do the right thing, and doing the right thing means success. So to me, that's a key point. So in conclusion, and again, I'm conscious of time. In conclusion, we all know that defense against a modern cyber threat, there's nothing actually 100% secure. You can have external and internal perimeters, but you can only try and stay ahead as best you can. And so implementing a cross-functional and well-communicated set of solutions across the industry will actually help you safeguard your OT systems. And again, the focus from a manufacturing perspective will be to minimize this disruption across the operational uptime. So i.e., I mean, the show keeps going. We got to keep the product manufacturing, but we have to ensure that we are minimizing the threat from cyber cyber hackers. And then finally, I like this kind of quote at the end from Robert Mueller, back 2012. So it's a bit ago, but basically he is saying what is true right now. And the two types of companies, one will be hacked and one has been hacked, and eventually they're going to be into one company that you can be hacked more than once. So let's hope it's not true, but we all know, and we see what's happening around the world at the moment, that we have to try and save our industries as regards this continual threat by communicating with each other, and also ensuring that we have a secure network for our organization. And that's my last slide, so I'll stop sharing there, guys. And I'll pass it on to, is it Diarmuid?
That's fine, Eamon. Thank you very much, Wayne and Eamon. They were fantastic presentations. They're definitely a good base to start with this OTSec group. At this stage, we're open to questions from the audience. I might start off with a couple of questions myself, just to get things going. So, in the case of you, Eamon, in a multinational organization where you have multiple sites, What's the balance between coordination across all the sites and autonomy in an individual site to deal with individual issues?
Yeah, no, and that's a good point. And I kind of touched on the point earlier on there. Because the sites have different ages. I mean, some sites are quite older. Carlow's quite a new site. We'd have different type technologies, and so there is certainly a lot of autonomy locally from an OT perspective, which has the advantages of agility, but it does actually render us in a situation whereby support is sometimes not as good as you'd like it to have it. So I think what we're seeing though with this team that we formed, there is certainly a lot of communication across the networks, and so you are responsible for your own site, but it is certainly it's certainly in a position whereby you do actually reach out to your ITRMS groups, etc., for advice before you make any action, and obviously vendor related as well.
Thanks. And Wayne, just a question for you as well. You mentioned the fact that you have certs across the different regions, and they're kind of linked with a cert in the HQ, but you had said there was autonomy between the different certs. What level of support could a company in Ireland who's a Siemens customer expect from the Siemens cert in the case where they do get hacked and they're in that terrible situation where they've just realized they've been hacked, and it's all hands on deck, and the panic is starting? So what level of support can the Siemens cert offer to Irish customers?
So that Siemens cert, like I said, is 24/7. So it's a case of pick up the phone, we respond to incidents with customers, we work with customers to bring them back on. Look, if it's a Siemens vulnerability, how to kind of mitigate those, work with them. So there's very much this collaborative approach where our cert would support the customer, and then as well as our local organization, and working with local certs as well that could offer support to the customer.
Cool. Just anyone from the floor now have questions? Yeah, Owen O'Rian has a question. He says, you reckon that it's a very important move, this organization is an important move, and congratulations on the group. Is it correct to think that the attacker is always one step ahead of the processing plant? Speed is also of the essence in combating and communications. If an isolated or subsidiary process is attacked, it obviously is important that the news be shared, and how to counteract it as universally and as instantaneously as possible in order to shield others. How is that communication concept being developed? So I'll put the question out to the panel.
I'd say from our side, it's something that, like, for me personally, with working with especially end customers in the security, there hasn't been as great a collaboration as we'd expect, because there's most companies are not regulated to tell you about a breach. So that same for Robert Mueller, most companies don't know they've been breached, or kind of haven't said anything. I think this is changing now, where it's not seen as you can't tell anyone about what's happened. It's about these regulations coming in that people have to disclose that. Like in Germany, any industry or any company that is hacked has to disclose that information, and this helps with let's say manufacturing in general, understand what attacks are coming down the line, how are these threat actors moving, how they're going through organizations, what tools and tricks are they using, and only through this collaboration can we really improve. And I guess it's aligning with some of the companies that are out there, like the likes of Dragos and people like that have those sort of tools and are keeping up to date with the threatscape.
Yeah,
okay.
just comment at Diarmuid. I mean, I wouldn't be aligned with the attackers or a step ahead of the process. Certainly, previously they may have been. I think over the last number of 4 or 5 years, a lot of activity has occurred, particularly around publication of large threats. Over the last 4 or 5 years, and we all know the non-petty viruses and the various viruses that have hit a lot of companies around. And so I think what you've seen now is you've seen a lot of organizations, particularly manufacturing organizations, investing heavily in the cybersecurity end of things to try and stay ahead of the attackers, right? there's also, I believe, a lot more collaboration across not just the external agencies, but also across companies also. Not just even within their own organization, but outside the organization, to try and stay ahead of this. Yeah, it's certainly difficult to do because, you know, things are very dynamic as they are right now. But, you know, the compass that we need to look at is we have to stay one step ahead at least. If we're one step behind, then we've got a problem, because, you know, if somebody gets in, you know, I think, as Wayne alluded to, I mean, and HSE is a good example of it. If somebody gets in there, you won't know they're in there until the damage is done, and then it's too late. So staying one step ahead is minimum, and more if possible. But communication is the key here, absolutely.
Yeah, I suppose the next question that's come in there is probably more for you as well, Eamon. It's about the, you know, is it typical, say, within an organization, a large organization, to have separate IT and OT security teams, and kind of what would be the communication between them? And just a second part to that question I'll ask you is, what level of interaction has the National Cybersecurity Centre in Ireland had with your organizations, or the other way around?
Yeah, so we wouldn't have an IT OT security different organizations, to be honest with you guys. We would have traditionally, you'd have, say, an automation team, which would be looking at automation and the element things, OEMs, etc. And then we have the IT organization looking at networks and you know, and servers and that kind of thing. What we found in the last couple of years is those actually two groups have actually merged to one group. And so essentially you have IT and OT in that area, but we're both actually in the same group now. So that's the seriousness of what we're doing, because you know, you can no longer have OT on its own or IT on its own either, because, you know, Factory of the Future ensures that we have data transfer, we have all the communication, the data coming from the instruments. And so as such, then you can't have them stand alone. So, you know, that was the case originally, but not anymore. On the Cybersecurity Ireland, we don't have much conversation with that group at the level of sites. Perhaps maybe higher up the level we would have, but certainly from our perspective, because we are a global organization, and we will be leveraging off our global colleagues around cybersecurity, because we do have a specific cybersecurity group that actually manages the organization across the globe.
Thanks, Eamon. And Wayne, just for that second part of that question, in the terms with your local CERT, does that interact with the National Cybersecurity Centre in Ireland?
Definitely, yes. So we have a good working relationship with NCC here, as well as the UK. In the UK especially, we sit on the board with them. We help kind of, especially for manufacturing, kind of give support around the security requirements. So there very much is a collaborative approach, and like we've seen really over the last few months and years, it's only getting better.
Oh, that's good. Just a question come in there from Donegal, just in regard to SMEs and you know, smaller business and medium business, and obviously not represented here. Just as a point, we did try to get an SMEs to come and talk as well, but it wasn't successful. Perhaps in the future. But what advice would you give an SME who's obviously seeing this HSE attack, seeing these other attacks, and saying, well, oh, my business could be at risk here? What kind of advice would you give them?
For the advice I give them is very simple, guys. Make sure your patching is up to date. Make sure your cybersecurity is to the current standards, and to ensure that you actually do reach out to organizations like Cyber Ireland, who do have an umbrella probably stream, I guess, really, to help with these incidents, because key to this is communication. And but Wayne and I mentioned it in our presentations, right? I mean, you know, staying one step ahead means communicating, and, you know, ensuring that your patching, your security is up to date. Then that's at least the best way I see forward for a small organization, let alone a big organization.
Thanks very much. Actually, there's another question coming in there. What importance would you give to good project and engineering practice, common mode failure points, system redundancy, high risk elements, vendor support, VPNs, protection of IP, being included alongside new skills such as cybersecurity?
Did you make? I'll answer, Wayne. Yeah, for me, guys. I mean, I think this is paramount because this is now not a new organization that we need to spin up. This should be a part of the business. So it should jet in with what the business does. I mean, in our organization, we run under a regulated environment. So, you know, we have SDLC, we have all that good stuff. But, you know, we make two products. I keep telling people in Carlow, we make two products. We make the drug product that we send out the door, and we make the data that supports that. And one is as important as the other. And so, you know, looking at risk is key for us, looking at the data and how we back it up and how we restore it. That's also key as well, because that's as important as the product itself. So, you know, as to the question there, I mean, good engineering and good manufacturing practice is paramount to the success of our company.
Yeah. Thanks, David. There's a question coming from Tim there. I think I should direct it to Wayne. How prepared do you think that regulated companies are with the NIST regulations in Ireland?
It depends on the organization. So some are ahead of others, and I guess with the regulations coming out, it just kind of it focuses everyone on now the compliance to that. And if they weren't focused on cybersecurity, which most of them are, it's really kind of pushing that home. And I guess what we've seen with the recent breaches, to have the governments and EU and the support like that. This is really a collaborative approach. It's not just for manufacturers to pick up this and do it themselves. It's really about getting that collaborative approach to this.
Thanks very much, Wayne. Are there any other questions there from the audience? Okay, so one coming in now. Just a second. How do you think the group can encourage? Yeah, this group. How do you think this group can encourage? Oops, it's jumping on me. How do you think this group can encourage local indigenous IT cyber providers to develop deeper OT security capabilities and experience to help service MNCs in the Irish and global markets? That's a good question. Thanks, Pat.
Collaboration, I guess, it's about using these skill sets in security, whether it be RT and blending in the OT security that you require for these, because operationally they are different. But it's about kind of combining those skill sets, those processes, those technologies, and using them within the OT environment. For us, even as Siemens, we use standard RT security products when we secure OT environments as well. So it's not uncommon. It's just about leveraging that kind of insight into the OT world and using those RT skills, services, products to make that happen.
Yeah, I'd agree, Wayne. And I think, you know, if you are a local indigenous cybersecurity provider, I'd reach out to vendors, because I think the key for your business would be reaching out to vendors who supply products, you know, be it Siemens or be whatever provider provides operational equipment for sites. You know, to us, we find there's a gap there, and we need to help with that. But I think if you are a provider of cybersecurity, if you work with a vendor that actually reaches out to various manufacturing areas, that's your foot in the door. Because if a vendor comes with a solution from a cyber perspective, you'll certainly be looked at more favorably as opposed to developing it yourself in-house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is very important. Yeah. Any other questions from the audience? Oops, someone else coming in.
There's a question there from one of our colleagues in Abbott Laboratories around the importance of GMP, GLP, and GCP, and I can speak to that. I mean, and I think, you know, his point is very valid as regards how important it is to comply with those regulations. You know, the pharmaceutical sector is the very same. So for us, GXP is paramount, but the whole cybersecurity and whole cyber activity that we're actually supporting now actually falls into that category as well. So they're not mutually exclusive; they're actually inclusive of each other, because it's key that we do keep that link there.
Thanks very much. Actually, a question from Limerick there. Can the panel comment on whether the maturity of OT cybersecurity solutions will limit the pace with which Industry 4.0 gets adopted?
I can answer that. It's something we've discussed, and I personally don't think so. I think the standard is a good framework. Whether you have physical security on a device on your premise, or if you're using the cloud, the principles are still the same. It's about following that process, for using the foundational requirements of that security framework and that standard, and using it to fit what you would like to achieve. I don't think anything will stop the pace of Industry 4 that's coming, whether we like it or not. It's about using what's available and doing it in a secure fashion. I guess security should underpin digitalization.
Thanks, Wayne. Yeah, just I suppose, Eamon, you were just talking about IoT there a few minutes ago. There's a question there about the lack of security in IoT devices, and I suppose their remoteness. How do you suggest they can be protected within an environment, particularly, I suppose, if they are remote?
Yeah, so the way we do that is by segregation. So we do ensure that the IoT devices that are operational and are in a segregated format on a segregated network with a so basically what we're doing is we're applying IT principles around firewall segregation, etc., to the IoT elements of it. So you know, with a firewall activities, you are actually giving yourself a huge amount of protection, particularly if it's one-to-one communication only, or you can actually do that by just one-way communication only. So it does allow you a degree of flexibility, because the key to IoT is information transfer, but it can go one way if needed.
Yeah, and Tim there came in with a comment there on that. He said it's also important that these types of devices are pen tested, you know.
Yeah,
I suppose within the overall testing regime for the organization. Just a question there, it's like more a point really, but I suppose I could turn it into a question about the MITRE ATT&CK framework for ICS. So I just wondered, did either of you, you know, have any experience with promoting MITRE ATT&CK frameworks within your organizations?
So we would do vulnerability testing within our factories, but I'd see in the end of the question kind of that red-blue question as well. And we've really seen over the last 2 or 3 years some of these, let's say, capture the flag type events becoming more common. So vendors like Siemens really encourage that sort of thing, where you're given these attacks on the product, on solutions, on systems. And a lot of the vulnerability disclosures come from these attacks, from these events where people are paid money for the number of attacks. I think there was one last February where there was over like 50 vulnerabilities disclosed because of that one event. It's really key, because we keep pace a lot faster with it, being able to mitigate those vulnerabilities from these kind of events. I think it's really important that we do this, because then when you stick them into operating facilities, they are more secure, and you don't have to test the facilities. The last thing you want to do the aim of the game is to keep that factory running. Yeah,
that's definitely true. There's a question there, again, back to you, Eamon, for this one, about the International Society for Pharmaceutical Engineers have developed a good automated engineering practice and data integrity practice. Do you agree with that?
I do, yeah. No, it actually is a good basis for looking at how we integrate automation into the new world of Factory 4.0. So I think the standard is quite good. Is there a way to go in it? Yes, there is, but you know, we're all growing, we're all learning. But I think as an initial kickoff, I think that's a good standard, actually. Yeah. Yeah,
there's another question there as well about what advice would be given, say, for managing quality of service for communications links and power lines within your organization, because obviously they can have a detrimental impact on the organization. So if you have external communications links, I suppose, or you have power coming in from the ESB or whatever suppliers. So would you have any recommendations in terms of a manufacturing site to make sure that power is maintained and communication links between things are maintained?
Yeah, and that's about risk analysis as opposed to cybersecurity, although you could roll them in together. But so certainly from a power perspective, we'd ensure that, you know, we had our critical areas protected, both from UPS and also from generators. I've seen other factories, not in Ireland, but where they've actually used 2 separate grids to actually get supply from a power perspective. Likewise, communication-wise, which are WANs, etc. Standard practice would be to have 2 vendors running 2 different WANs or multiple WANs to your site to ensure that, you know, if you lose one, you have the backup one, etc. So you know, and then even a wireless solution I've seen, and we have one here in Carlow, a wireless solution as well. So that's kind of risk aversion as opposed to cybersecurity, but they are probably linked, I suppose.
They're linked, yeah, there's a link, all right. The next question, Owen, I know you're muted there. You might come off mute. The next question I think I'm going to direct towards you. There's a question really about education and training in general. And I know last week we had the launch of the cyber skills initiative with a number of institutes around Ireland, and obviously there are other institutes in Ireland also delivering cybersecurity training, such as IT Carlow. Do you want to just mention how people can get involved with the cyber skills, Owen?
Yeah, I suppose look, cybersecurity skills is one of the main reasons why Cyber Ireland was actually set up in the first place. It came from a number of meetings that we had with industry back in 2017 around the cybersecurity skills shortage in Ireland, and that was reflecting, I suppose, the international shortage in cybersecurity professionals as well. And I suppose the companies that were involved at the start saw that even though many of them would be competing with each other as cybersecurity vendors, but also competing with each other for talent locally, that challenge was big enough that they needed to do something together on that. And along with other challenges around research and development and national coordination, so that's where Cyber Ireland came about from. And I suppose we've looked at cybersecurity skills challenges very much from an IT perspective to date. So we launched our cyber skills report in February, which highlighted a number of skills shortages for cybersecurity professionals and skills gaps, but it was very much focused on IT skills. And that's something that I think we'd like to expand when we're doing our annual skills survey next year to look at specific OT security skills. We've also done a mapping of all of the courses in Ireland that can get you into a career in cybersecurity. And we found that specifically there's about 54 courses that have a minimum of 15 credits of cybersecurity modules included in them. But again, these are very much focused on IT cybersecurity skills, and there's not as many in the OT security space, and that's something that we're looking to map out and explore where there might be some gaps in. And of course, Diarmuid down in IT Carlow, you have the new postgraduate diploma in industrial networks and security as well. So we'd like to see more of those types of courses developed. So I suppose that's one of the key areas that we'll be looking to explore with companies in this OT security forum over the coming months, as well as specifically around skills shortages and skills issues.
Thanks very much, Owen. Just a comment there made that the ENISA have published a document on skills and certification, particularly for cybersecurity and ICS. And the link is there in the question. I don't know, can everyone see those links? Or is that just the panel one? I'm not sure. Perhaps we can put that link up when we're doing, when we're putting up the information from this particular event. Okay, I think that's the pool of questions complete. Is there any other questions? Okay, so I'd like to thank the panelists for your time and for the excellent presentations and insights into the problem, to the root of the problem. So Owen is going to talk about the survey now, and we're going to have a survey that is designed to really try to map out where we're going to bring the OTSec group within Cyber Ireland forward from here. So I'll hand you back to Owen.
Perfect, thanks Diarmuid. So I'm just going to pop the survey there in the chat. If you can take 5 minutes to give us your, I suppose, thoughts, your feedback around what should be the goals and the activities of an OT security group as part of Cyber Ireland. So today's webinar is really just a starting point. It's to kick off a conversation around what are some of the challenges in OT security. And I think that we've seen from the engagement in the chat and the questions and answers that it's a huge topic and we're only scratching the surface here. So we'd really invite your feedback around, okay, so what are the most significant challenges that companies are facing, and what can we do through this OT security forum. We can't boil the ocean, we won't be able to do everything, and we're also keen not to duplicate what's already been done. So there are other organizations out there, such as the International Society of Automation that has cybersecurity for OT training. There's cybersecurity vendors, like there's a cybersecurity OT forum group run by Renaissance, and we don't want to duplicate the good work that's been done there. And it's about leveraging those groups, but also looking internationally to what best practices are available there, and also looking at standards and certifications, and maybe how we can share that through the OT security community in Ireland as well. So we'd invite your feedback through that survey. I suppose I want to thank very much our two panelists, Eamon and Wayne, for their time today and for their insights, and in particular Diarmuid in getting this off the ground. You know, it takes a lot of work in putting this event together today, looking at the topic, developing the survey. So thanks very much to Diarmuid for taking the reins on this. And I suppose just looking to where it's going to go afterwards, where we're going to take the feedback from the survey and go through it to see what kind of activities and objectives we're going to look at. And we're going to have a follow-up meeting with the group of people who put themselves forward as volunteers to lead this working group over the next couple of weeks, in the hope that we'll develop it out over the summer and have a programme of activities ready for September. So similar to our threat intel group, we started out with an introductory webinar like this, wanted to understand what's the level of people's knowledge around OT security. And because we found a lot of people were actually at the beginner level around threat intel, we set up a monthly webinar for a half an hour on the last Wednesday of the month to upskill people around an introduction to threat intel. So taking somebody from zero right up to more advanced topics. And we're about midway through those sessions now. So we might do something similar to that in the OT security group as well. Just a couple of highlights around Cyber Ireland events that are upcoming as well. The Threat Intel group are going to be having their next meetup. It's the 8th session on the last Wednesday of the month, so keep an eye out for that. And we also have a new webinar on ethical hacking, which is on the 7th of July as well. So all of those events are up on our events calendar as well, if you'd like to sign up for them. And just to note that these working groups and events are primarily for Cyber Ireland members. So if you want to participate in the working groups, sign up for membership. All of the information is there on our website under the membership section. And it's a good time to get involved as well, because our membership year runs from June 2021 to May of 2022 as well. So that's everything from me. Diarmuid, I don't know, do you have any final comments to make?
No, I just thank everyone for their participation. I really like to thank Wayne and Eamon again for fantastic presentations, and you know, onwards and upwards from here.
Great, thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.